The following is an original Livin' podcast.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Kansas was definitely a very interesting weekend, and of course, a lot more history was made on top of that as well. And we're going to talk about it on this episode of Gamers Talk NASCAR. As always, I'm Elijah Leonard here with you, and for the first time this season, I am solo, and there's a few reasons for that. Some things came up almost last minute, about 15 minutes before we were actually going to pre-record the show. Wyatt, even if we were going to pre-record Monday, he was going to have to. He was working in the morning, so unfortunately, he wasn't going to make it either way. Sly was all ready, but obviously, I made the decision to go solo, and then Stapleton probably still doing his NR stuff, more than likely. But ladies and gentlemen, as you can probably tell, I mean, if you're watching over on the YouTube side, we're slowly getting things switched over to another thing, to something else that I've actually been thinking about, for a little while now, and we're slowly making this transition from the 11 Podcast's name to something similar, and to something that brings a little bit more of nostalgia, and also kind of adds in a little bit more of that modern element, if you will. This is known as Max the Hedgehog Network. Now, for those that may not know, for the first 5 years of me being online on the internet, I was known as Max the Hedgehog, and that was the first persona that I wound up going under before I changed it to 11, and 11 is what I've been ever since. But Max the Hedgehog was something that I've been ever since, my 8th grade year in middle school, all the way up until my senior year in high school, probably about up until March or April of 2019. And, I kind of just steered away from the name Max the Hedgehog because it felt like a little bit of voodoo, to be quite honest with you. But here we are in 2026. I mean, I tried it again in 2020, by the way, and it just wasn't working out too well. But 2026, here we are, man. Here we are. We are now using the Max the Hedgehog name, but for a whole different reason. It is now the MTHN YouTube channel. I'm going to figure out what I can do with Spotify, get that name changed over to MTHN, and I think we should be okay from there. And also make a new, sort of intro, whatever it may be, kind of like the voice where I say the following is an original. Yeah, that's getting retired here pretty soon. And we're slowly making the changes. We're slowly transitioning everything over to the Max the Hedgehog name. Obviously this is a way to, get in touch with, a little bit of the past while staying in the present, if you will. So that's pretty much it. But with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the Kansas weekend. Let's talk about it. Starting off with the O'Reilly series, there's only two things that I know from this race. One, Carson Kvapil ended up flipping, and then Taylor Gray goes on to win the race. He held off Sheldon Creed, who also is our Dash for Cash winner for this past weekend, for the win. This is Taylor Gray's second career victory, and it's kind of awesome. It's honestly awesome to see that Taylor Gray is finally, he's kind of coming around. He's actually getting wins. He's starting to collect more wins throughout his career, and obviously this is win number 2. And when how the saying is, when you win your first race, you don't stop winning from there. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, of course, is Carson Kvapil's flip. Man, really, this was back on lap 1. This is back on lap 1? That's actually That is actually crazy. But Carson Quapple's flip, his barrel roll on the back straightaway at Kansas, was something that you would see off of AI, that AI would create, basically. You just see the car, obviously, it was sort of, the way it sort of just fishtailed and then went and collided with the outside wall head on. It's kind of similar to Eric Jones back in 2017 in the fall of 2017. But only difference is his car did not actually flip over and start doing barrel rolls unlike Carson Quapple did. And the way that, and again, I'm going to say it again, the way that Carson Quapple's flip happened, it's almost like he hit the wall, not that terribly hard, but air just got underneath of the car and just sent him up into the air and into some barrel rolls. This wreck looked 100% AI generated on Carson Quapple's part, but it was just so weird of how it happened as well. Not to mention how this happened on lap 1 is just beyond absolutely insane to me of how this wound up happening. But man, the O'Reilly Series race was definitely an interesting one from start to finish. And then this is a race that I actually did watch all the way to completion. This was the Cup race. And this race, man, other than stage breaks, this race was fixing to be caution free. And it was like, all right, it's kind of shocking of how we've gone this entire way without a yellow flag, without a yellow flag for incident, to be more specific. And it was going to come down to Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick. And it looked like Hamlin was going to have it in the bag because Tyler Reddick basically ran out of fuel, but he pulled out when he switched over to his reserves and was going to make a charge. And then just completely out of nowhere, Cody Ware spun out in through turns 3 and 4, which set up that overtime finish. And that finish was just wild. This was similar to what we saw in the fall last year with Bubba and Denny and Chase and whoever else was involved in that little fiasco in that overtime. But you also had, of course, Hamlin was trying to drive back up to the front of the field. He almost got there. Tyler Reddick basically just drove by everybody to nab his 5th win of the season. For Tyler Reddick, he becomes the first driver since Dale Earnhardt in 1987 to win 5 of the first 9 races of the season. Toyota, on top of that, has won 7 of the last 9 races. Obviously, Phoenix and Martinsville are the only 2 that they have not won, which to me, and I'm still gonna say it, this is like 2016 all over again, where Toyota was just dominating with Joe Gibbs and Furniture Row Racing. This is what it's reminding me of, and if we keep going down this route here for the Cup side, this is going to be absolutely, I wouldn't say like super annoying, but it's definitely going to get to a point where it's almost, like, man, all right, cool. It's just going to become predictable. It would just become predictable at that point. So I'm honestly hoping that that's not going to be the case, but you never know. You never know. Let's go ahead though and talk about our finishing results here for the weekend. Starting off with the O'Reilly Series. Taylor Gray, of course, wounding up as the race winner, followed by Sheldon Creed, who finished in the second position, Justin Allgaier in third, Jesse Love in fourth, Brent Cruz completing your top five, then William Byron, who drove the 88 this week. He's in sixth, well, last week rather. But then Cole Custer finishing in the seventh position, Brandon Jones eighth, Sam Mayer ninth, and Ryan Sieg rounding out your top 10. Positions 11th on down to 20th looks like this. You have Dean Thompson, Corey Day, Jeb Burton, Patrick Staropoli, Jeremy Clements, Sammy Smith, Josh Williams, LeVar Scott, Brendan Poole, and William Sawalich. That is your top 20. 21st on down to 30th goes like this. Raja Caruth, Ryan Ellis, Blaine Perkins, Nathan Beard, Kyle Sieg, Josh Bilicki, Joey Yace, Harrison Burton, Dawson Cram, and Anthony Alfredo. I do want to point out that there were 28 cars that were running at the finish, and 29th on down were out of the race. Now, 31st on down to 37th goes like this. It was Blake Lothian, Austin Green, Mason Maggio, Austin Hill, Luke Baldwin, Parker Retzloff, and Carson Quapple in car number one. He started in position number one, and he finishes dead last after going out on lap one. That's so wild to me of how that flip happened on the first lap. That is absolutely crazy to me. Now we get into the Cup race, which the pole sitter, that being Tyler Reddick, of course, finished exactly where he started. Kyle Larson coming home in the second position. And then it's Chase Briscoe finishing in third. Denny Hamlin finishing in fourth. Bubba Wallace rounding out your top five. Brad Keselowski in car number 6. He finishes in position number 6. William Byron finishing in 7th. Chase Elliott in 8th. Ty Gibbs 9th. And Chris Buescher rounding out your top 10. And then from positions 11th on down to 20th looks like this. You have Ryan Preece, Austin Cindric, Carson Hocevar, Riley Herbst, Corey Heim, Austin Dillon, Todd Gilliland, Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, and Christopher Bell in car number 20, finishing in position number 20. 21st on down to 30th looks like this. You have Ricky Stenhouse Jr., John Hunter Nemechek, Eric Jones, Ryan Blaney, Cole Custer, Ross Chastain, Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, Connor Zilich, and Joey Logano. They finished, well, that's your top 30. And then finally, from positions 31st on down to 37th, AJ Allmendinger, Zane Smith, Ty Dillon, Michael McDowell, Kyle Busch, SVG, and Cody Ware. Everybody was running at the finish. Nobody went out of the race. Cody Ware was only just 6 laps down, obviously, when that overtime happened. But everybody was still running on the racetrack when this overtime occurred. Now, let's talk about our points. Now, Wyatt this week has finally gotten around to updating our points. Remember last week when he was out of town? Unfortunately, he was not able to do this. So, I mean, he kind of was, but I think the only thing he wound up updating was our prediction points. But here we go for our points for both divisions, starting off with O'Reilly's. Justin Allgaier, obviously with 3 wins this year, he has a 291-point gap above the cutoff line, and about 131 points over Sheldon Creed, who is the new runner-up in the point standings, or at least he's been there. Jesse Love with 142. He's above the cutoff line, along with Corey Day, who is 115 above. Brandon Jones, 95 above. 81 above for Sammy Smith. 72 above for Carson Quapple. And then 6-7 above with Austin Hill. Taylor Gray, who is 65 above. William Sawalich with 42 above. Parker Retzloff, 29 above. And Raja Caruth, who is 25 points above the cutoff line. And then you get below that with Ryan Sieg, who's 25 below. Sam Mayer 29 below. Brendan Poole with 55 below. Brent Cruz 64 below. Jeb Burton 65. Anthony Alfredo 83. 102 for both Dean Thompson, Patrick Staropoli. 103 below for Blaine Perkins, and 112 below for Jeremy Clements. Obviously, Brent Cruz, he is slowly climbing. He is climbing up. Talladega, I think, is going to be a little bit of a kind of a speed bump. It depends on how that weekend goes, but I'm pretty confident Brent Cruz, he's going to be able to. He is going to possibly get himself inside of the top 12 by next month. By May, by the time, at some point in May, maybe mid-May, maybe late May, I don't know, but there's always that possibility that that we're going to see Brent Cruz inside of the top 12 within the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4, maybe a whole month. I don't know, but one way to find out. I mean, there's still a lot of time. Parker Retzlaff, Carson Kvapil, of course, they've taken some hits after finishing in the final 2 positions last weekend, but they're still in this thing. Parker Retzlaff, there's a good chance that he'll bounce back. Carson Kvapil, I'd definitely say the same thing for him. So, we just have to wait and see what winds up happening here. I mean, I'm still pretty impressed with Corey Day. I mean, he is 115 points above the cutoff line. It's amazing to see somebody who finally is getting, who's learning this car, who's learning, the stock car, and especially running one specific type of car, actually do as well as he's doing right now. And has almost won several times, so it's actually kind of impressive. Now let's talk about our Cup Series points heading into Talladega. We're leaving Kansas. Tyler Reddick now with 5 wins, is 260 points above the cutoff line. Not as big of a gap as what Allgaier has, but still pretty big. 105 points is the difference between himself and Denny Hamlin. Hamlin is 155 points above the cutoff line. The 140 above is Ryan Blaney. Ty Gibbs is 122 above. Kyle Larson 117. Chase Elliott 108. 78 for both William Byron and Bubba Wallace. 6-7 above for Brad Keselowski. You can tell the joke has grown on me at this point. Still not fond of it, but find ways to make fun of it. Anyways, Christopher Bell, 64 above. Chris Buescher, 62 above. Carson Hocevar, 40 points above. Ryan Preece is 38. Joey Logano is 28 above. Chase Briscoe is 17 above. And Daniel Suarez, I think this is the first time this year so far that we've seen Daniel Suarez above the cutoff. He is 13 points above the cutoff line in the final spot for the chase this year. This is so far with with 1/4 of the season complete. Now, Austin Cindric is 13 points below the cutoff line. SVG is 32 points below the cutoff line. Michael McDowell is 36 below. Ross Chastain is 46 below. AJ Allmendinger is 48 points below. And Zane Smith is 61 points below. Now, I think we can safely assume, I mean, regardless of whether or not if Suarez is going to be still above the cutoff line after Talladega, and whatever other races, Suarez, I think him and Spire Motorsports might be a pretty good combo. It's probably a sleeper combo. because Suarez, I mean, it took him a little bit to actually kind of get things rolling. But he has shown a lot of consistency in his own right over the last couple of weeks. And I'm actually kind of impressed to see him, at this point, above the cutoff, just barely above the cutoff line right now. I don't know how long that will last, but I'm pretty hopeful that we'll see Suarez maybe a little bit higher in the cutoff line, so that way he can try to create that gap to better his odds of getting into the chase this year. You just keep that consistency up, basically. I don't know how long that's going to go for, but yeah, I mean, this could go for the rest of the regular season heading into the chase. We'll see, though. We'll see. Now, it's unfortunate also to see SVG, who just came out of the box, by the way, who just absolutely came out of the box this year with multiple top 5s and top 10 finishes. Daytona, Atlanta, Coda, Vegas, I mean, just to name a few. And all of a sudden, after several weeks, he is below the cutoff line. Ross Chastain is down here as well. Trackhouse altogether, absolutely just they absolutely crapped the bed. They crapped the bed this weekend. Zilich, I mean, we kind of had an idea that he was going to be back there. I mean, in his own defense, obviously he's a rookie, but there was a pretty interesting point that was actually made, I think earlier in the week by Corey LaJoy on his podcast, Stacking Pennies, that RCR and Trackhouse are severely behind when it comes to, just improving on top of the next gen car and actually, finding ways to get more speed out of it, try to get better handling out of the cars, vice versa. And it kind of makes sense because if you really think about it, these are the two teams that in particular that had that had that advantage, that competitive advantage. For Trackhouse, they had like the GM guys that basically shared that the same team building, because if you remember, Trackhouse ended up buying out Chip Ganassi Racing, so they bought out the shop, they bought out all the cars. And at the time that this is also at a time where they were a 2-car operation, and they had the GM guys over there, at least that's what I remember. So that's where they had that competitive advantage. That's why Ross Chastain was just bad to the bone all that throughout 2022, winning Coda, winning Talladega, and then coming so close to winning the championship in 2022. Runner-up, by the way. And this is also the same year that the Daniel Suarez also nabbed his first win at Sonoma. And then of course RCR. They were the first team to actually test the next gen car with Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick. Reddick, of course, we know the year that he had, in 2022. I think he wound up winning not just Road America, he wound up winning Texas, I believe, and maybe 2 other races as well. I can't even quite pinpoint that off the top of my head. But regardless of that, RCR, all of a sudden, by the time 2024 came around, they were really starting to fall behind. I mean, with Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon. I mean, of course, with Austin Dillon, it was kind of nothing new there. But from for Kyle Busch to see him struggle the amount that he has. This man is on a 2-year winless streak. Well, a winless streak that spans back to 2024. So it is almost a 2-year winless streak for Kyle Busch. And, you know, that's kind of painful to see, especially if you are a Kyle Busch fan. And for Kyle, I can definitely imagine his frustration because he is a very competitive guy. He's a competitive driver. He loves winning. And when he's not winning, of course, you know, he's going to be a little bit agitated, and who's to blame him, you know? But I'm confident that we'll see Kyle Busch back in victory lane. I'm not sure if it's going to be with in an RCR car at some point down the road. It could be maybe a spot opens up at Spire. I don't know. Maybe if Riley Herbst gets booted from the 35 and they need like that veteran experience, maybe they get Kyle back behind the wheel of a Toyota. I don't know. I mean, like if they don't go with Kyle Busch and the veteran experience, they could still go with Corey Heim, who's been on an absolute freaking tear the last couple of years. So, I mean, options are there. The options are there. But regardless of that, this year, I mean, of course, Trackhouse is absolutely struggling with Connor Zilic. You know, I mean, we've seen that with him. Ross Chastain, he was not even anywhere in the conversation of being a top 5 or top 10 contender. Nor was SVG. Nor was Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch, I mean, ever since probably like the only time you probably would have at least heard him being talked about was when he had a right rear tire go down. And that the tire was cording as he was trying to get into the pits. That was the only time that you probably would have at least heard one syllable of Kyle Busch. So at least one syllable of conversation being talked about when it came to Kyle Busch. If that makes sense. But man, it's actually kind of interesting. Now, speaking of interesting, let's switch over to our GTN points. And after Kansas, this has gotten pretty close. This has gotten very, very close. So heading into Talladega, there is a 3-way tie for the lead. Myself, Wyatt, and Nathan all managed to rack up a total of 35 points. And Slifer is only 4 points back with 31. So between myself, Nathan, and Wyatt, it is as close as it gets. One of us, after Talladega, is leaving with the points lead. Sly, hopefully he's able to rack up enough points to pass one of us. Hopefully. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for him. But that concludes all the damn points. And now let's talk about something else that has kind of been a topic of conversation over the last couple of days, and that would be the possibility that is being looked into. And this is actually kind of one that I am so firmly against, that the O'Reilly series may possibly be turned into an all-electric series at some point down the road. And if I'm being honest here, this is by far, hands down, if they go through with this, if they actually do go through with this decision to change to turn the O'Reilly series into an all electric series, hands down, you're killing the O'Reilly series altogether. And of course, like you can kind of see why NASCAR would do this. You can kind of see why NASCAR would do this. Of course, they're trying to be a little bit more eco-friendly. They're trying to, kind of steer away from, just being, I guess, sort of just being, I don't know, whatever it is. But this would be absolutely terrible here. I mean, I just looked up a quote just now, as of a little over 24 hours ago, that was actually posted here by John Probst, who is the NASCAR EVP, and he says here, long term, you see it as we do have that CUV body that we've developed for our electric vehicle. I'm not sitting here saying today we're breaking news it's going to CUV, but these are the things that are on the roadmap to consider. So you'd have a truck, a CUV, and a cup. And a cup. That's three very different bodies that are relevant for our OEMs today to create that brand identity for each series. First off, absolutely not. I fully disagree with John Probst here, and even Dale Jr. As you can imagine, is 1,000,000,000% against this. The O'Reilly series already has its own identity here with this car that has been around for just about 15 years now, at least on a full-time basis. You remember back in 2010 when they made this car? This was known as the Xfinity or the Nationwide Series Car of Tomorrow. This was back at the time when, when the O'Reilly Series was known as the Nationwide Series. Then they switched over to this car full time. And this is the car that they have had ever since. Ever since. This car is the closest thing that we're ever going to get to an actual real stock car. It drives, basically it's nothing like the Cup car. It's nothing like the truck. Well, kind of similar to a truck, but more different in a lot of ways. Because this is actually, this is a car that I feel like a lot of fans can really relate to, because this car races a lot better than a Cup car or a truck altogether. This is the best car that NASCAR has. And because of that, viewership in the O'Reilly series is up. And it's just an upward trend. Cup has been going down. O'Reilly's has been going up. And a lot of it has to do with, just the racing in the O'Reilly series has been absolutely superb. It's been spot on. It has been absolutely spot on. And a lot of it has to do with this car. With this current car that the O'Reilly series has. You decide at some point down the road that you're going to turn the O'Reilly series into an all-electric series. You are killing the O'Reilly series altogether. You are absolutely burning it to the ground. Because after all that momentum that the O'Reilly series has been able to build and has actually become a lot better than the Cup series, you're just burning it to the ground at that point. You're killing off all that momentum, and it's just going to crash and burn if you choose to switch over to the all electric vehicles at some point down the road. it's a consideration. That's the good news. It's a consideration and it might not happen. That's the good news. The bad news is that it's a consideration and it also might happen at some point down the road. And I'm honestly hoping that it doesn't happen, but if it does, man, I think Wyatt will have to be the main host of the show if that actually happens, because that would be absolutely just dreadful to see. Okay, so now with that said, we've talked about that. Now let's shift gears into previewing Talladega. Once again, it is the O'Reillys and Cup Series that are on for this weekend. Trucks is still off. I'm pretty sure they'll be back the following weekend. But of course, Talladega, as if you know about the iRacing sweetheart JD McHaley, Talladega, the land where dreams go to die. That could be a possibility here for a lot of these other drivers that are still trying to search for their first wins, whether it be if you're looking in the O'Reilly series or even in the Cup series as well. But Talladega is just the land of the unpredictable. The land of the unpredictable. And we'll see exactly what happens here. And especially, it's going to be interesting on the Cup side with the stages that are completely flipped. Of course, the first stage is going to be 98 laps, and then the next two stages are going to be a lot shorter. And even that final stage is going to be a lot shorter. So I'm curious to see how that all is going to play out. And we'll just have to keep our eyes open here as to what happens. Let's go ahead and get on down to our predictions here for the weekend. For those of you who are brand new to the show and are exactly not sure how we make our picks, here's how we make them. We give you a driver who we think is going to win. Pretty self-explanatory. Driver to stay away from is the driver that hasn't been doing well the last couple of weeks, or we're just coming up to a track where they don't perform all that well at, whether statistically or in general. And the dark horse is the exact opposite. With that said, I mean, obviously, this Talladega is going to be interesting. And who knows? We might see a driver from an underfunded team get the job done. I mean, there's always a possibility. It's happened before. It could very well happen again. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to read off. Oh my. Yeah. We're going to read off all of our panelists' predictions here. And I have a good idea of where Wyatt put his. But we're going to start off. Oh, wow. I don't think he even changed his predictions. I don't think he even made any. Well, actually, by the time that you see this, I'll put Wyatt's predictions on the screen. But let's go ahead and read off Sly's predictions here. Starting off with the O'Reilly series, his dark horse, he chose Justin Allgaier. For his driver to stay away from, he chose Brandon Jones. And for his driver to win, he chose Austin Hill. For the Cup Series, he chose Kyle Larson as his dark horse. Castron Hocevar, he made a little typo here. He said he meant, obviously, Carson Hocevar as his driver to stay away from, and his dark horse, Denny Hamlin. Now, for Stapleton's predictions. Oh, wait, he did make his picks here. He just, he entered in Sly's and Nathan's here. I didn't even realize that. Okay, anyways, but for the O'Reilly series on Nathan Stapleton's end, he chose Jesse Love as his dark horse, Blaine Perkins as his driver to stay away from, and his driver to win, Parker Retzlaff. For the Cup Series, he chose Kyle Larson as his dark horse, SVG as his driver to stay away from, and his dark horse, that being Ryan Blaney. Now, for Wyatt's predictions, his dark horse is Jesse Love. His driver to stay away from is Sam Mayer. And his driver to win is Austin Hill. Now, for his Cup Series predictions, he chose Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as his dark horse. His driver to stay away from is BJ McLeod. I'm pretty sure McLeod is in here. No, it's Daniel Dye. Really? That's actually interesting. I believe this is Dye's Cup debut. That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe it is. But his driver to win regardless is Ryan Blaney. Now, let's go ahead and make my predictions. Starting off with the O'Reilly series, my driver to win over there. Let me actually get a little bit more comfy in the seat. But my driver to win over in the O'Reilly series, RCR is just absolutely immaculate when it comes to super speedways. I'm gonna say for my driver to win, I think I'm gonna agree with Austin Hill on this one. Especially with his success on super speedways, or at least I'm putting this all in the wrong section here. Whoopsies. But yeah, no, I'm choosing Austin Hill as the driver to win. He's definitely gonna add on to RCR's resume here when it comes to super speedways and add another win to his resume. My driver to stay away from, I think this time around, personally, I'm gonna say Carson Kvapil as my driver to stay away from. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, he has performed well in no matter what car he steps into, but I just really feel like that this weekend is just not going to treat him all that well. If he flipped on lap 1 at Kansas, chances are, you know, he's probably going to get caught up in a big one at Talladega. But my dark horse for this weekend, I'm probably gonna keep my eyes here. I will have to say I'd have to agree on Jesse Love here, because everybody, with the exception of Sly, has at least chosen. Well, actually no, everybody has said that, you know, RCR is either going to be an RCR car is going to be either our driver to win, a dark horse, or both. And all of us have kind of unanimously have said that with our predictions here. So Jesse Love, though, is going to be my dark horse. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the main event. The 57th annual Jack Links 500 at the Talladega Super Speedway for the NASCAR Cup Series. Here we go for my driver to win. Man, you got two people here that said Ryan Blaney, one that said Denny Hamlin. Honestly, I'm gonna go with a Penske guy. I'm going with a Penske guy here. And to be honest, a couple weeks ago at Bristol, I wouldn't say I took a shot in the dark here when I said Ty Gibbs would be my driver to win. And he, surely enough, went on to win at Bristol. But I'm going to say my driver to win here, he's going to break a winless streak. I'm going to say Joey Logano is going to be my driver to win Talladega here. Logano has had some success here in the past. And I'm pretty sure he's going to add on to that and go to victory lane at Talladega. So give me Joey Logano as my driver to win. My driver to stay away from here for this weekend, honestly, I'm probably gonna say, at least for this weekend, Jesse Love is gonna be my driver to stay away from on the Cup side. O'Reilly's is a bit of a different story, but for Cup, of course, I'm going to say he's my driver to stay away from over there. But my dark horse, to be quite honest with you, I'm gonna go with another Ford guy. Give me Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski as my dark horse for this weekend. Keselowski, we know, is a pretty prolific plate racer himself. He's very, very aggressive as well. So I feel like if he doesn't win, hey, he can still get himself a good finish regardless. So give me Brad Keselowski as my dark horse. But alrighty though, ladies and gentlemen, we pretty much done everything that we needed to do. We've talked about Kansas. We've gone over some of our breaking stories and our points. We previewed Talladega and made our predictions from there. So with that said, the only final thoughts that I have before we get the Talladega weekend underway, I'm going to repeat it. Talladega, the land where dreams go to die. But that's going to do it for this episode of GTN. Next week, I am hoping that we have all of our panelists here, that we are going to have at least Slifer or Wyatt or Nathan or all four, or at least 2 out of the other 3 part of the show here for this upcoming weekend. And fingers crossed, I'm really hoping that's the case. But anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of GTN. I want to thank you guys a lot for watching and or listening to this episode. If you're brand new and listening to this on Spotify, be sure to hit that green follow button. And if you're if you're watching this on YouTube, if you like what you see, be sure to hit that like button and be sure to consider subscribing in order to keep up with some fine racing content, podcasting content. And for both Spotify and YouTube, be sure to follow, just keep up with the action. So that you don't miss future episodes that drop every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Elijah Leonard signing off, and we'll catch you guys on the very next episode of Gamers Talk NASCAR.
Thanks for listening to tonight's episode of Gamers Talk NASCAR. Really hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to hit that follow button so you don't miss a future episode throughout the NASCAR season. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time.